What's happening around the world and what's happening here at home? Good evening, I'm Sandra Ferdinando and welcome to Weekend Primetime News. Before we get into our stories in detail, let's take a quick look at your headlines. Another revelation on the Super Minister.
අනිකුත් ඇමතිවරු පාංකඩේ වගේ වෙන තත්ත්වයකට පත් වෙන තත්ත්වයක් මේ හරහා නිර්මාණය වෙනවා.
Bodies of the victims of the Chavaka Cherry collision airlifted to Colombo. Motorcycle accident in Malabar claims the lives of 3. A ring that protects the corrupt, a revelation from the JVP leader. Starting off with the news, what is a super ministry? Let's now cross over to Chaturanga Haparachi, who is joining us from the newsroom with more details.
Thank you, Sandru. Sandru, you might have heard of super overs in cricket. You might have even heard about the Super Bowl. But there are information that is coming out about a super minister or a super ministry in our own country. Now, what I have with me right now is the Development Special Provisions Bill. The draft of it, this has been printed now and it's being circulated. Now, what is special with this is that there was no talk of this bill when it came to this being drafted. There was no one talking about it. We did not have any information about it. Now, once we received a copy of this draft bill, the Development Special Provisions Bill, we went through it. Not only us, the English desk, the Sinhala desk and the Tamil desk of Newsfirst went through this special provisions bill. We sat with legal experts, we sat with economists, and we went through every single bit of this. And what we think should be reported to the people with regard to this special development bill, we will be bringing it to you so that you can have an understanding of what this super ministry is, what this super ministry does, who this super minister will be. So in that sense, in that context, we have a story about this today as well. Let's see what we have for you today. A feature of the Development Special Provisions Bill that has drawn much attention is the inability to file civil or criminal cases. Section 51A and B of the bill reads as follows. No action or prosecution shall be instituted against A, the agency, board or other institution for any act which in good faith is done or purported to be done by such agency, board or other institution coming within this act, or B, any member, officer, servant or agent of such agency, board or other institution for any act which is done or purported to be done by him in good faith under this act or on the direction of such agency, board or other institution as the case may be. Such immunity from prosecution has only been provided by the Constitution to the President of the country thus far. Incidentally, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution introduced following the election of President Maithripala Sirisena limited the immunity afforded to the President, creating instances where even the President of the country can be brought before the law. Experts in the law opine that while the President is acting to let go of certain powers, this bill, if enacted, would create a super ministry which centralizes several powers.
Now this is an absolute monstrosity if you examine the provisions, because what it does is it devalues all the ministers. The little bits and pieces of all the power that they now hold will be taken away and embedded in one ministry which will run not as a corporation or with any authority but purely as an agency, while that will take over all the central government's sought after powers relating to trade, industry, manufacture and finance, while the rural economy is also taken up by a board. Now these two things are coming under a ministry which will be run by a super minister who will then be appointing a managing director and 6 persons of his choice. No other minister, no prime minister, no president, mind you. He is going to appoint them all, and it will be the entire central government will be in the hands of one person. It will be a virtual dictatorship, an economic dictatorship. If somebody associated with economy is involved in this exercise, you can have an economic hitman coming into existence. This is very dangerous. But you don't need any ministries. After that, one man can write the operations. As far as the economy is concerned, there is no necessity of a finance minister. And what is very strange is the fact that this particular agency and the board will have no legal action can be sought against them. The Prime Minister and the President will be mere puppets.
I signed a petition with my lawyers against the Development Special Provisions Bill and will be filing it at the Supreme Court. We are intervening in this issue considering the serious nature of the issue. We believe it is unconstitutional and dictatorial. This disempowers the President and the Cabinet. Everything will be done based on the will of an individual. That is not a democracy. It becomes tyrannical and fascist state which does not listen to anyone. We have faith that the Supreme Court will deliver a fair determination on whether it is constitutional or unconstitutional. This is the kind of ministry that Basil Rajapaksa functioned in during the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime. There was no legal basis for it then. The power of Rajapaksas was used to suppress all the other ministers. Eventually, the actions of Basil Rajapaksa led to the division of the SLFP and the departure of Maithripala Sirisena. Now Ranil Wickremesinghe wishes to obtain the power to operate the other ministries as he wishes. The Prime Minister is gathering power unbeknown to the President. When the disabled veterans were protesting and they were attacked, it was said that if the President was there, it would not have happened. So it is evident that it is not the President but someone else who is behind it. It is possible that it was the Prime Minister. If the Prime Minister wishes to sell land, he does so without consulting the Ministry of Lands. He intervenes in the functions of the Finance Ministry and uses funds as he sees fit. Now an attempt is being made to appropriate the powers of the other ministries as well. We believe that all members of Parliament will vote against this. This will create a situation where all other ministers will be made worthless.
One can see a clear hand, like the UNP constitution, where the party leader in the constitution got total power, and as a result, there was various issues in the constitution in the UNP itself. Now today, we can see the same phenomenon taking place with this Development Special Provisions Act, where the Honorable Prime Minister is trying to get the minister who may be the Prime Minister himself to have total control. He will have total authority with regard to what is going to take place and who is going to do it. One person seems to be getting all the power, and the President is going to be sidelined. Now, one can see what happened during the central bank bond scam. That was totally mishandled. If not for the intervention of His Excellency the President and the matter being sorted out in that manner, that would have brought disaster to this government.
Continuing in more local news, speaking at a meeting in Hinguragoda last evening, JVP leader Anura Kumar Disanayake expressed the following views.
According to the Public Property Act, a magistrate court cannot grant bail over the charge of misusing more than 25,000 rupees of public funds. That is how tight this act is. Only the High Court can grant bail for such an offence. Even in the High Court, bail cannot be granted for the case. The High Court will grant bail citing a personal matter. Now the current situation is that all of those who have been arrested are obtaining medication for various illnesses like itchiness and rashes since day one of their arrest. And this is what they are being granted bail for. Then there is something called a Money Laundering Act in the country. As per this act, every citizen in the country has an obligation to declare their wealth and how they accumulated this wealth. Failure to do so can result in this wealth being declared as wealth accumulated through illegal means and 3 times more than that wealth being taken over. There is no need for a more tighter act than this. So there is no obstruction in the laws of our country from punishing the corrupt in our country. You do not need new laws either, because the law already exists. So if the law exists, the establishments which could investigate and file cases also exist. Why aren't these criminals being arrested? No matter who the ruler is and who forms governments, it is always the corrupt ring who rules the country, which consists of politicians and state officials. Corrupt state officials like Lalit Veeratunga, Gamini Senrath and Premasiri are in this ring. This corrupt ring also includes businessmen. But more than businessmen, I think there are dealers in this ring. A few from the judicial sector are also in this ring.
A political discourse has arisen regarding the 5,000 rupee note. At a recent media briefing, Finance Minister Ravi Konaranaike revealed that a large sum of money had been dispatched from the central bank prior to the presidential election. The joint opposition responded to this allegation today.
The problem highlighted by Prime Minister Modi regarding 500 and 1,000 rupee notes is evident in Sri Lanka as well. We can see 5,000 rupee notes circulating during protest rallies. We wondered how to interpret this. These have the current serial numbers. Should we demonetize it? When an office is registered, we see it happening. When it is not present, we wonder how it happened. You are aware that prior to the election, 1.3 billion was released by the central bank. Where did it go? This is where it went. We need to look into this. We will have to look at everything, including what is being taken in the lorries. Everyone, including the police and the FCID. This is the first time that I have heard an allegation from the finance minister of a country that money worth 1.3 billion was printed in secret by the central bank and released for political activities. This would be an even bigger scam than the central bank bond scam because it is not a small amount of money considering the total amount of cash circulating in the country. It is about 3%. Has he, as a responsible finance minister, complained to the counterfeit currency unit at the CID? Secondly, if he is unable to take decisions regarding such a massive problem in the country, he must report it to the cabinet, the president and the prime minister. Cabinet must prioritize this above all else and file legal action against those responsible, regardless of their status and whether they are politicians or not. They must bring them before court and punish them. If that has not been done, then the people must decide who must be punished. As a joint opposition, we request that the President immediately intervene in this matter.
අද අපි අල්ලස් දූෂණ කොමිසම ඉදිරියේ පරීක්ෂණ කරන්න ආයතන හතරක් සම්බන්ධයෙන්.
Today we requested that the Bribery and Corruption Commission investigate 4 matters. One is the hedging deal, the other is the purchase of Greek bonds. We have named the governor of the central bank in this matter. We have opened investigations into the Greek bonds and other cases that caused financial losses to the country. You are simply hanging on to one part and circling around it. The report on the hedging deal worth 64 billion rupees has not been submitted as yet.
What are your thoughts on the matter? News First will make your voice heard. You can express your views to our provincial correspondents. Call us on 0114 792 700. Send in your views via our social media platforms, Facebook. Log on to www.newsfirst.lk.
The humanitarian disaster that is unfolding in Syria has captured the attention of the world. While allegations are thrown around by the powers that be in this world, it is important for us to use this opportunity to reflect on our own plight as a nation. Lucia Harish, an Israeli Arab news anchor for TV2 in Israel, shared these thoughts on the crisis on the 15th of December.
Right now in Halab, Syria, just an 8-hour drive from Tel Aviv, a genocide is taking place. You know what? Let me be more accurate. It is a Holocaust. Yes, a Holocaust. Maybe we don't want to hear about it or deal with it, that in the 21st century, in the age of social media, in a world where information can fit into the palm of your hand, in a world where you can see and hear the victims and their horror stories in real time, in this world, we are standing doing nothing while children are being slaughtered every single hour. Don't ask me who is right and who is wrong, who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, because nobody knows, and frankly, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's happening right now in front of our eyes, and nobody in France or in the UK or in Germany or in America is doing anything to stop it. Who is marching in the streets for the innocent men and women of Syria? Who is shouting for the children? No one. The UN is holding meetings of its security councils and wiping away a tear when they see the image of a father holding the body of his little daughter. There is a word for this: hypocrisy. I'm an Arab. I'm a Muslim. I'm a citizen of the State of Israel. But I'm also a citizen of the world, and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed as a human being that we chose leaders who are incapable of being articulate in their condemnation and powerful in their actions. I'm ashamed that the Arab world is being taken hostage by terrorists and murderers, and that we are not doing anything. I am ashamed that the peaceful majority of humanity is irrelevant once again. Do we need a reminder? Armenia, Bosnia, Darfur, Rwanda, World War II. No, we don't. Albert Einstein said, "The world won't be destroyed by those who do evil, but rather by those who watch them without doing nothing."
Lucia Harish's powerful message makes one thing clear: expect nothing from the powers that be. This is the unfortunate truth in the world today. While humanity is on the brink of its own destruction and poverty is at its peak, politicians couldn't care less, as it appears that what matters to them most is their own wealth and well-being. As they have nothing to gain in providing solutions to such pressing issues, they choose to neglect them. The Greek philosopher Plato once said, "The punishment which the wise suffer who refuse to take part in government is to live under the government of worse men."
The News First editorial.
In a letter addressed to the President, the Secretary of the Education Ministry requests that the Head of State enforce the law against Lanka Salusala and its officials and external parties who are engaged in a school uniform material racket, misusing a letter issued by the Secretary. He claims that the actions have sullied the coupon program which was successfully introduced for free school uniforms last year. If a letter issued by him is being misused, then the Education Secretary must lodge a complaint with the police as per the law of the country. If a broader investigation is required, then the Education Secretary faces no obstacles in seeking the assistance of the Criminal Investigations Department. It is possible that the Secretary has opted out of these two options because he is well aware of the contents of his letter and because he is aware that it cannot be proven that his letter has been misused. The letter issued by the Secretary, on the other hand, can be considered as an instance of misuse of power. Being fully aware that Lanka Salusala is an inactive organization, through this letter the Secretary requests the heads of schools and zonal and provincial education directors to support an effort to purchase uniform material provided by Lanka Salusala using the coupons provided to school students. As such, it is the Education Secretary himself who should be held accountable for the plight faced by parents who purchase this material using the coupons provided as advised by the heads of schools on the instructions of the Secretary.
When they said it was from Salusala, we were deceived. The material is of very poor quality. Even before we could sew it, we saw that the cloth was fraying. I told one of the children not to use this cloth, but she said that she has no other option and she paid me to sew a uniform for her.
There are also reports that persons claiming to represent Lanka Salusala who arrived at the schools as per the instructions in the Education Secretary's letter had put forward several interesting proposals. These organizations come before the principals with the approval of the authorities. Then these businessmen tell the principals that they are willing to give 100 rupees of the value of the voucher to the principals. If the value of the voucher is 650 rupees, they were willing to give 100 rupees from each voucher to the principals. Who were the surreptitious persons that filled their own pockets while attempting to bribe principals and supply substandard material to school students? Mr. President, over to you.
Following the alleged bond scam and the numerous incidents that preceded it, what does the future hold for the financial services sector in Sri Lanka? A Newsfirst special expose has uncovered that while a number of online news sites reported yesterday that shares of Ceylon Bank PLC that were held by state-owned Bank of Ceylon have been sold, now this is done without authorization from the government.
According to the website Economy Next, the stock of shares at Ceylon Bank had been sold for 100 rupees each, about 15 rupees higher than the market value. The Economy Next site reports that the stock was bought by a foreign buyer. The transaction has been valued at around 1.3 billion rupees. However, other media outlets report that the transaction has taken place without the authorization of the government. Newsfirst's attempts to contact the general manager of Bank of Ceylon, the holders of the shares, for a response were futile.
Youth from Hinguragoda and the residents of Suhandagama joined hands with the Gamma initiative today.
The first project under the Gamma, the Taruna Savya program, which is a leadership training initiative under the theme Beyond Tomorrow, commenced today at the Rajarata Vidyalaya in Hinguragoda. An international standard exhibition boxing match was held parallel to the leadership training session. During the course of the day, leadership training activities, sports and leisure activities were conducted. Furthermore, screen tests were also conducted to identify talented young men and women. We appreciate that you have come to a poor village like this and are supporting the development of sport. We appreciate the support extended towards uplifting sportsmen like us. Several national level coaches shared their expertise during the event. Although we have identified their skills, there aren't any programs developed for their growth in the field. Programs of this nature would be highly beneficial for them to reach the national level. Today was a good opportunity for the youth. They were able to showcase their skills and talents on a remarkable platform.
The foundation stone for the 70th model village under Samata 7 housing program was laid in Hambantota today.
The model village in the Khandi area in Hambantota was named Senavidu Wasabagama. When walking in these villages, we can still see that there are over 100,000 people still residing in mud huts in the country. Many of these people watch helplessly as to who will provide them with shelter, who will provide them with lands, when they will receive houses, when they will be able to build a house. One part of our country lives happily, while the majority of the other half live in difficult conditions. A solution needs to be brought to this disparity.
The unveiling of the Samadhi Buddha statue at the Sri Sambuddha Lokvihara in Japan was held today. The statue was designed by Kalashuri Venerable Ratnapura Nandathera on the guidance of Venerable Tunhitiyave Dhammaloka Thera under the blessings of the Chief Sangha Nayaka of Japan and President of the Sri Lanka Mahabodhi Society, Venerable Banagala Upatissa Thera. Incidentally, this is the largest Samadhi Buddha statue in Jaffna constructed in line with the Theravada tradition. A group including the Mahanayakas and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa graced the occasion. Twitter users across Sri Lanka gathered today at the Maradana Trace Expert City for Tweet Up Sri Lanka. The event provides a platform for the Sri Lanka Twitter sphere to get acquainted with their online colleagues up close and personal. The Put a Name to the Face event saw a limited audience gathered to meet and greet their fellow tweeps. The annual event was held for the 6th year today, and Newsfirst Digital was the electronic media sponsor for the event.
The Twitter Missile Committee is giving away the award.
Moving on to a story that made it the headlines, the final rites of the victims in the motor accident in Chavakacheri are scheduled to be conducted tomorrow. The bodies of the victims were airlifted to the Ratmalana Air Base from Jaffna earlier today.
Lahiru Madhushanka is a youth who was killed in the accident. This is his bedroom in his house. His bedroom remains silent as he is today. Lahiru, whose profession is in the field of information technology, lost his life in an era which motor accidents is widely spoken of. Lahiru Madhushanka, who was 25 years old at the time of his death, was to be accompanied by a few members of his family on his trip, but had not.
My father told me not to go since there is no one at home, so only my brother went.
I've lost everything. Now just a daughter of mine is left and she's receiving treatment at the ICU.
The group which had left to Jaffna from Kalutara had collided with an SLTB bus around 1 in the afternoon yesterday. The victims who died in the accident consist of 7 siblings of the same family and 3 other relatives. 55-year-old W.A. Dayavati, 53-year-old W.A. Leelavati, 67-year-old W.A. Chandavati, W.A. Dairatna, W.A. Amal Gunaratna, W.A. Gunasena, W.A. Nandavati, 68-year-old Yakupitiye Sumanavati, 54-year-old Yakupitiye Upulvasanta Kumara, and 25-year-old Laidu Madhushankar are the victims who were killed in the accident. The other victim who was killed in the accident is a resident of Matale. The final rites of the victims are scheduled to be conducted at the Kajugasvatna cemetery tomorrow. Meanwhile, 3 people were killed in a collision between 2 motorbikes close to the 10th mile post on the Atudugiriya-Malabe road last night. Police said a motorbike travelling from Arangala to Malabe had collided with another motorbike travelling in the opposite direction. A female pillion rider of one motorbike and the other motorcyclist died on the spot, while the youth travelling with a young woman succumbed to his injuries at the National Hospital this morning. The accident occurred when the youth, aged 22 and was employed at a private medical institute in Malabe, was returning home from work with the 26-year-old female who was employed at the same institute and is a resident of Oduwala Atudugiriya. The other victim of the accident is a 26-year-old soldier and a resident of Bibile who was serving at the Palawata army camp.
And now in sports news, Havelock Sports Club's unbeaten run in the Inter-Club Rugby League ended as they were defeated at the hands of Kandy Sports Club today. Kandy Sports Club beat Havelock Sports Club in the finals of the first round of the season 39 points to 30. And with that, we wrap up Primetime News. Do join us again tomorrow with the very latest news. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Sandru Ferdinando. Do take care and good night.